All right, so our game is Wick, and this is our March status update. You see John Wick is practicing his social distancing and his mask, since it's a little weird that we have a game that is also about a plague as we're living in one right now. Kind of a weird time for that. So let's go ahead and get started here. So this is the same slide that we showed at the vertical slice for our March status update. We made a couple adjustments based off of priority and things along those lines. So here you can see the adjustment here. We changed the animations that we wanted from jump and attack. And then also the Mar animations, we realized that we didn't need an idle, and we just made the walking animation as the priority. We were able to get all this accomplished. And the things that are left over, unfortunately, Keanu Reeves is one of them. But these things we did not get to finish. But that leads me right into our feedback from Vertical Slice. So we had a couple different pieces of feedback at Vertical Slice. One of them was the sick room not looking as disheveled as we said it did. So we wanted to address that. Our wax material for Jean, our flame, the sliding walk that Rick pointed out, and also our shadow for Jean. So we're gonna go through all this. We did make passes at all these different things. We're gonna start with the sick room though, and that brings us to our environment art. At Vertical Slice, we showed the sick bed that we had made for where the sick would lay from the plague. So someone suggested that we should probably break the beds or make pieces of the beds. So we went ahead and did that. So now we have broken pieces of beds. The beds are broken, and you'll see that in the demo later on. Someone else also mentioned that the monk didn't look like it actually succumbed to the sickness. So we wanted to make sure he definitely looked like he had, had the plague. So now we added some boils on his head and back of the neck and hand. So now he definitely looks like he was sick and died. We also made even more of our tapestries. These tapestries are used to tutorialize the player, if you remember from Vertical Slice. We have a variety of different ones now. The text that's on the tapestries now is in Italian and is not for the player to read. It is there to make it look like an old tapestry that could be in a cathedral in our time period. So you can see in the middle here, there's a little candle pouring his buddy, similar to how we would do that in the game. And that's just reminding the player, hey, you can pour your buddy in this area. We also have some bookshelves. We're starting to knock out some of our library assets now as well. We have some modular railing. And also going along with the same exact thing that we've talked about breaking the beds and things along those lines. We're doing that continuously through the rest of our development process with our assets. So we also have broken pieces of our modular railing as well. This is giving the LDs more access to different pieces of items. Also, if you remember, the step ladder that we ledge climbed over in Vertical Slice, we now have our custom asset for. So, all right, looking back at our feedback, we just covered the sick room, and the wax material is the next piece. Wax material, the flame, and the sliding walk. So that's going to go ahead and bring us over to our John Wick iteration. For the wax material, we had a big UV seam around the base of Jean. So we went ahead and addressed that and fixed that. This is what we showed at Vertical Slice. And you can see the UV seam here at the bottom. And that's just a subsurface scattering connecting with the UVs. So we went ahead and fixed that. So now he has no more UV seam around his butt. We also covered the John Wick shadow as well. Here's a little demo of how the shadow works. We're using basically a box that's around John Wick's base, and every time it gets close to the ground, it creates a shadow. We're kind of faking a shadow. You'll see this in the demo as well. Also, we made a second pass at the flame to make it look more like an actual flame in real life. Here's what the flame looked like before. This is the same build that we had at Vertical Slice. And now here's our updated flame. We are super happy with this now, and I'll go ahead and play it again. We're super happy with this. We really think it really works with Jean much better, and that actually makes it look like a real flame. We've also started some more animations. Some of the animations you're going to see in the demo, but also we have some that we don't have functionality for yet. And that includes the low attack. And we also have the high attack. And these attacks are going to be used when Legiones come in and dive bomb on Jean. Jean has the opportunity to try to hit them and make them explode before they come and take his life. For Legiones, we showed these animations at vertical slice. The idle, the flying, and also the attack. We only had one more to do, and we knocked that one out already as well. We have the hit and stun animation. So when Jean uses his attack animation to hit Legiones, he'll fall over on the floor and be stunned for a little bit, flap his wings and stutter, and then come back up to get ready to attack Jean again. For Mara, we did our Mara 2.0 version that we showed at vertical. And this was the same exact slide that we showed at vertical slice. We're able to complete the texture as well. And here now is our completed Mara model. You'll see this in the demo as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and move over to our mechanics and gameplay. So we had a gameplay problem. Right before we left for spring break, we did a huge team playtesting day, basically, where we had some real baseline Mara AI in the chapel, and everyone played against the Mara AI to see how fun it was, and just to experience what it felt like to actually try to hide and run from Mara. Well, with that, we found another problem that we weren't expecting, was that growing your flame, no one needed it or was using it at all. And we wanted to address this pretty early. So we went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out why this was happening. Why was no one growing their flame? So we laid out our advantages and disadvantages for the player of using their flame. When you grow your flame, you can see more. But usually in the level, everyone could usually see what they needed to see. And if you needed to go up to anything, you could just grow your flame real quick, go up to it and be like, okay, yeah, that's all I need to see. So it really didn't do as much as we thought it would. Because the disadvantages are, Mara can see you more easily, which is much more scary, and Legiones can see you more easily. So we're trying to find tried to find a way to balance out the advantages and disadvantages of growing your flame. One way we thought was to make the environment darker. But the problem with that is we have a really strong art team, and we don't want to hide the VFX and art assets from the player. We really want to showcase them. So that didn't work for us. What we did end up deciding to implement is a sprint mechanic. So every time you grow your flame, you get a little bit of a speed increase. And you'll see this in the demo as well. We think it's going to make a lot of sense for you to be able to run from hiding hole to hiding hole using your growing flame mechanic. But there's a cost at that because your flame is going to be bright and Mara will be able to see you more easily. Speaking of our AI, we're going to go over the two AI mechanics that we're going to be showing today. That's the Legione AI. The areas will contain varying numbers of Legione, anywhere between 1 to maybe 7 of them. When there's more than one, they'll swarm together and attack. They follow their light, follow Jean's light, and they're also distracted by the buddy. For Mara, Mara AI will hunt and kill you. She follows your wax trail, follows your light, is distracted by the buddy, and can also, Jean can escape Mara and then use the little hiding holes, and then she'll go, I don't know where he went. So looking back at our March status update commitments, you see we have a whole bunch of level design things that we worked on this, this couple sprints as well. And we're gonna go right into level design now. So in the clergy rooms, we're showing Legiones in the sick room and also in the library. And then in the chapel is where we're going to be showing all of our Mara AI. Something that we're really cool that we're doing in the chapel and the rest of the rooms as well is we're trying to find a way to make the environment really come alive and get that really big little nightmares feeling and tone of spooky feeling. So what we've done is get lightning inside of the chapel. And I'll go ahead and play this again. We're super excited about this, and you'll see this in the demo too. It's really cool. Now, all right. I'm just going to remind you of what we had at vertical slice. For vertical slice, we had the sick room as our visual target. We showed some mechanical features like the buddy and the checkpoint and also the flame. We showed a white box of the clergy rooms and also the chapel. But we didn't show any gameplay, specifically the AI, and that's what this demo is all about today. Now, a known issue that we know about and we're actively working to find a solution for is the character's clipping, especially because the doubter is so large. He's clipping into rocks and walls and things along those lines. And we have a couple different solutions that we're looking at right now. One is using procedural animation. So when you walk into walls or something like that, it'll like push the doubter back or around and the character will adjust. But another thing that we need to note is that we still have a lot more animations to add into the game. So that could cover a lot of the clipping issues as well. So just wanted to make that known that we do know about this issue and we're currently finding a solution to it right now. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get to our demo. I'm going to stop sharing and Pat is going to start sharing the demo. So Pat, you should be able to get it now. Okay, so we found out last night that Zoom does not allow you to change audio in the game. We can do that after as well, but we're going to go ahead and talk about our clergy rooms now. So first thing we want to bring your attention to is the monk boils that we've shown in the presentation. Pretty spooky, and now he definitely looks like he was ill. We also want to note that the red cylinders throughout the level that you'll see today are basically our wax pickups. Basically, when Jean walks over him, he'll gain a little bit of wax. Now we want to show you our flame effect. Pat is going to run around a little bit here to show off the flame effect that we showed in the presentation. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to show you some of our animations, the ones that we haven't shown in the presentation yet. The first one is going to be our buddy pour animation. We still have a whole bunch of VFX to add to this, but we do have the animation functional in the game right now, and the buddy will appear below Jean. Notice the buddy animations as well. That's his idle animation, and now Pat will go ahead and pour again and can show his jog. It's pretty cute if I say so myself. All right, Pat's going to go ahead and start walking towards the other side of the sick room, the same part that we showed in the vertical slice. You'll see it definitely looks much more disheveled as it did from vertical slice. And he's approaching the first Legione. This time, we're only going to show one Legione in this area. Jean will get detected by the Legione, and they will start moving towards him. They detect you either by seeing you or because your light is too bright and you're close enough. They will stop and give you an opportunity to attack them before they reel back and kamikaze into you. You will be able to hit and attack them using your doubter. That functionality is not in there, but you will see that in April. You will also notice that when Jean gets hit, he will lose health, and you know this because he shrinks in size. So, all right, let's introduce him to the Legione. You'll notice that Jean shrinks here, and then also, after a couple seconds from the Legione dying, they then spawn again. And now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did at vertical slice. We're going to walk up to the top of the table here. We're going to die, basically, and then you're going to respawn back at the candelabra in the beginning. This is where we're going to go introduce you to the Legione Swarm. This means that there's more than one Legione. They will swarm together, and when they swarm, it basically incentivizes the player to sneak around and use your crouch or the buddy. There's too many Legione to attack all of them, so it basically is saying, hey, you can't make it through all this and kill all of them. You need to use your buddy or sneak around them. There's no way you can kill them all. Also, when we go through this room, you're going to notice that Mara is in the background walking around. We'll explain more about Mara's AI behavior in the chapel. However, in the clergy rooms, Mara will be more scripted and also will be slower to help tutorialize the player for when they get the real deal in the chapel. So, all right, Pat's going to walk up past this door and use the buddy to try to distract the Legione. And Pat successfully made it through the Legione. You'll also see creepy Mara in the background walking towards Pat here. Again, she is slower to tutorialize the player. Pat's going to continue on through our newly asset-packed library here. And here's also some of the art assets that we showed in the presentation, like those books and also the step ladder. And now we're going to go ahead and move over to the chapel area. And here we are in the chapel. You can see the lightning that we showed off in the presentation and the rain that's through the window. We're super excited about this. We really think it hits the tone that we're looking for. So now we want to show off the camera a little bit. We've added some cool features. What Pat is showing now was the dolly. The LDs can set up the camera angle at every point along the camera spline, and it will make that angle at a point that they can set. It is still working along the same spline, but it is fixed onto the spline shape and angle, but it's just pushed forward. We also have a vertical dolly that we'll show later on through the chapel. All right, so now what we're going to show you is our sprint functionality. When John grows his flame, he can sprint. It might seem small, but it makes a big difference when Mara's chasing you. And what Pat just did was light his little checkpoint there in case Mara kills him. So now we're going to prepare to show you Mara. She will hunt you by your light and your wax trail. Similar to Legione, she detects you based on your light and just seeing you in general. You can escape her through a hiding hole and hide from her. So now he's trying to hide from Mara. He's going to wait for her to come back. And what you're seeing, the little red symbols that are behind John, it's showing that Mara is detecting him. That one that's sitting in the middle of the floor there is showing his last known location to Mara. So there, Pat just juked Mara, and he made it past. And now he's going to run to one of the hidey holes over here. So now he successfully escaped Mara, and she's looking around because she doesn't know where he went, and is going to go right back onto the patrol path. Now we want to show you that Mara can be distracted by the buddy. Now from the hiding hole here, Pat can deploy his buddy and distract Mara with it. Mara will follow the buddy. He just poured his buddy, and look, she distracted Mara with the buddy, and now he's going to make his escape on the column here. And we're going to walk up the column, which is our cool way of showing the vertical dolly, and also a way for our game to get some verticality as well. And now Pat's going to go ahead and jump off the column here, and we're going to show you our confessional space. These were the little breakpoints that we were talking about before. In future updates, we're going to have the camera pull really far into the confessional and basically have a little intimate moment here where it'll also be creepy to the player, but it's still giving the player a chance to breathe. The candelabra is already lit for the purpose of our demo. However, we'll make a custom confessional where it is broken and light can pass through it, and then you still have to light the candelabra as well. And that is our demo. However, there's still a little extra thing that we want to show you. We've been thinking about playtesting a whole bunch. So Pat here is going to go ahead and stop our recording that we've been doing since the beginning. The recording's been finished, and now we're going to go ahead and load the recording of the entire demo that we were just playing. Now what we're showing you is our playtesting recording tool. We've been working really hard on this for a while now. So basically what this did is basically record the entire thing that we just went through. Right now we have a free-form camera, but in the future updates we want to try to get it so that we can see the perspective of the player as well. You can pause, you can replay, and you can change speeds. This is still a baseline right now, but in the future we want to show all inputs from the player, from Mara AI and Legiona AI. Has change in speeds here to show. And then you can see the cute buddy animation in slow-mo. We're going to be using this for our remote playtesting as well. So what we're thinking about doing is possibly having, when we give a build to someone that's remote, when the game is done, it'll automatically push one of these videos to a Google Drive folder that then the entire team can get access to. So, all right, and now that is our demo. Pat's going to stop sharing here, and then I'm going to regain the sharing. Boom. All right. So on the March status update commitments, we basically had an initial schedule that we wanted to show today. Well, we did have one until the coronavirus ruined that for us. We had a deal with the Microsoft Store at the Florida Mall where they were going to set up like about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 playtesting events at their Microsoft Store where they had like a 100-inch TV, and they were going to set up drinks and tables and everything, and people could come and play the game. We could do our surveys and feedback and all that. But that fell through once the coronavirus hit the United States. So we've been looking at other remote playtesting opportunities. Playtest Cloud is a company that actually one of our developers used to work for. It is a way that mobile games can remote playtest off of the cloud. We contacted them. Obviously, we're not a mobile game, so we can't use their services. However, they were a startup at one point as well, and they were able to give us a whole bunch of cool options or advice, basically, to figure out how we could possibly do remote playtesting. Some of these options are the subreddit of playtesting, the subreddit for beer money, and we're also going to start looking at other Reddit game dev pages as well to find other ways for us to remote playtest. Playtest Cloud also said that the Games Research and User Experience, SIG, is basically a user experience company. They have a Discord channel that people can join and ask questions inside, and they usually answer them pretty quickly. So we're going to start really asking a whole bunch of questions and options that we can do for remote playtesting. And surprise, surprise, a big topic in that Discord right now has been remote playtesting because of the coronavirus. So we're super excited to see what we get from that. And then in April, we're going to have more of a direction on where we want to go now, since we had a pivot. So if you might remember, Taylor's team mentioned that they were moving fully to critical path. We're doing something similar with our team, but we're changing it up just a little bit. In pre-production, our team did a Scrum and prototyping methodology like hybrid mashed together, and that worked really well for us. And right now, as we hit production, we're going to do a critical path and Scrum hybrid as well. Scrum works really well for our team, and especially being remote and continuously reviewing work in a Scrum methodology, we think that's going to work really well for being remote specifically. So what we're doing is this plugin here that I'm showing is called Big Gantt. It's a plugin for Jira, and it basically puts all of your Jira tasks into a Gantt chart, which is super useful. You can change start and end dates. You can move tasks around. You can see I have the March status update and April status update in there. It shows you real time what day it is and the progress of all your tasks at once. This also allows you to find your critical path based off your longest string of dependencies. We're using this information, our critical path information, to basically schedule and plan our sprints throughout the rest of our development process. If we know, like right now, Mara animation and Jean animation is in one epic. That epic is our critical path. So what we're doing in our sprints is basically front loading a whole bunch of those animations and getting another animator to help with those to knock that critical path down a little bit. And then if that critical path then changes to say maybe Mara AI, maybe that means we have to take a programmer off something else and help that programmer finish up that Mara AI. So that is how we're planning those sprints from now on. And it's working really well so far. What we're showing here is our meeting time. From the very beginning, we've had a consistent ratio of meeting time to work time. And you can see that we've actually decreased about 3% or so, which is about 34-hour difference from before. We're showing this to you because we know working remotely that we're going to be basically having more meetings. We expect that. So we're showing this now to get a baseline. And then in April status update, we're going to give you an update on what our meeting times have been for the last couple sprints, the first ones being remote. As I said, we expect these numbers to increase. Since we are remote, we need to continuously have communication. So we'll be interested to see how the data changes next sprint. Now, since we're virtual, we got to change some things up, including our production pipeline. When tasks are initially given out in a sprint, we go one-on-one with each individual developer to have them agree on their tasks and hour estimates. This is where our expectations for the tasks are given out to the developer themselves, so they understand the task completely. And then they can start progress on the task. And when things are ready to be reviewed, where do you put it? We, as a team, since we went virtual, we have completely nixed the lead review column inside of Jira, and it's been replaced with 3 separate columns in our sprint board: Bro with Joe, Chat with Pat, and also Joanna with Balana. These 3 are now our lead review, and each individual track puts those tasks in one of these little columns, and that is shown in our flow chart here. For the level design process and the art process, it's very similar. The difference is who they have their lead review with. For level designers, when the task is ready to be reviewed, it gets moved into Chat with Pat. And then for artists, it's put in Bro with Joe. This forces our developers to have a face-to-face video call using Zoom or Slack or Tandem to basically say, hey, this is my task, this is what I did. I think it's really good, it should work perfect. And then with Chat with Pat or Bro with Joe, they can review the task and say, yeah, that looks good, and then they can move it to done. If it's not, and something needs to be tweaked, then it can go back to reopened, and then it'll go right back to Bro with Joe or Chat with Pat. For the programmers and TDs, it's a little bit different. The Chat with Pat here also include Balana, who's our programming lead, and basically they both review the tasks together. Pat looking more at design, and then Balana looking more at programming principles. And then when that's good to go, Pat will go ahead and say, yep, okay, I can go to Joanna with Balana, and that's where Balana will do a full code review of the blueprint or the C++ code, and then move it to done. You also notice there's another little path above that skips Chat with Pat. That's for non-gameplay features, such as our replay testing tool. That doesn't have any gameplay features, so that doesn't need our design lead's approval. That can go right over to Balana, and then Balana can do the code review, functionality review, and then move it to done to speed that process up. So already this week, we can see a big increase in communication from this, and also tasks are getting done much faster because of this. And because of that, we are interested in this data as well. Basically, throughout, we've been pretty consistent with the amount of tasks being reopened. Sprint 3 is right before vertical slice, so there's a whole bunch of polishing that we had to do. We are hoping that with these new lead review columns, that our reopened rate, which is shown here in the graph, will continue to go down because there's an extra communication happening. And we're already seeing that now. So we're hoping that this trend going downward will continue in sprint 6 and 7. And we're going to show that to you in April as well to show updates on that. Now we're going to go ahead and go through our April status update commitments. For John Wick, we're going to continue with animations along with Mara as well. We're going to really work hard on the crouch activation tool to be able to sneak around the AI. And also for Mara, the crawl. When she's going to be crawling when she's chasing after you, and we're super excited to see that in the game. It should be really creepy. We're going to try to finish all the clergy room assets, do the buddy port VFX, and also have a completed wax trail drip as well. For level design, we want to first pass on the gameplay of the entire room's area so we can play through the whole area and say, yeah, okay, that needs to be tweaked, or this needs to be tweaked, or you know what, this area is really good. So we can actually start play testing more often. We also want the chapel to be fully asset packed and some action blocking to be pretty set in stone with the Mara AI, so we can expect to know how we need to tweak Mara AI to work better in that environment. Like I said before, we're going to have our playtesting direction. I'm going to always keep contact Keanu Reeves up there because you never know. We're going to work on a fully functional Mara AI as well as a completed wax trail, and for both of those to be able to interact with each other. We're also going to have some stress tests and optimization data in April for you. And we're also going to start working harder on sounds, including the swarm, the attack, and then the angry sound when the Legionis actually see Jean. And then also for Jean sounds when the Legionnaire hit him and when Jean attacks. And then also we're going to have a breathing sound for Mara for when Mara gets closer to you, so the player knows, oh no, I got to run or hide. So we are super excited to include all this in our April status update. And then that is our March status update for Wick.
Wow, so that is like awesome. So I'm not sure. I don't see Ron in here anywhere, so he might not. He might have some bandwidth problems or whatever. If Ron's here, he can obviously unmute and speak up. But for now, I'm going to assume he's not. That being the case, why don't we start by hearing some feedback from Chris Rhoda, if you're around.
Oh, great. Can you hear me? Okay. I think so. All right.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. All right. I'm really impressed by the overall lighting and the look of the level. I think it's really great looking. In my humble opinion, it's one of the best looking capstone games I've ever seen. I think it's really impressive. I really like how you're dealing with your blacks. Keep up the good work. You're doing a good job of not allowing yourself to clip into black. And so that's really good. And I like the way that the lighting is dealing with Mara, is putting her in shadow, which is just a wee bit darker than everything else. And I thought that was a really good look. I thought that the models that you had are, the changes to the models here are fine. I'm a little bit confused about the little clouds of dust that when John walks around, it kind of looks like he's farting. And there's a little fart bubbles kind of like passing him around. I don't know, maybe that's the wax or something, but it's not coming across as that. The attack animation, it needs to be a little bit more of a difference between the high and the low attack. Instead of just moving with his upper body, it needs to be more of a body thrust. The Legione's front flip, it feels a little bit floaty when it kind of goes from the on his back onto his front. Kind of needs to be a little bit more sort of. I thought that the boils on Mara's arm were definitely a nice touch, but they look a little bit out of place on the character. Maybe they need to be a little bit more subtle. And some of your rubble appears to be floating. John's animation looks really good. I really am impressed with the way John's looking. But Mara's animation looks different. It looks more blocky, more jerky, more inconsistent, like there's missing frames or something. I kind of didn't think that they matched in the same theme world here. Jean's shadow definitely helps him. Great job with getting his shadow. I think your shadow approximation looks great. It works perfectly. Your doubter shadow is more contrasty. And likewise, your buddy shadow is more contrasty. And I think the shadows in the scene in the room with the window and the lightning, it just needs to balance up there. It's a little lighting issue to get all the shadows in the same place. As far as the gameplay is concerned, I thought everything was going well. I'm not sure I really understand what the red symbol is. Is this the red symbol? Is this a placeholder? I really couldn't quite understand.
It's a thing to show where she's seeing you. So it'll stay where she last saw you.
It's not an actual gameplay feature, but it's just for us for people who are seeing it to visually see, hey, Mara's actually detecting Jean. That won't be in the actual gameplay though.
It will not be?
It will not be.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if it was just a placeholder or not. And the story is, I'm still a little bit vague on the story. So what's the story I'm kind of getting is kind of for your character to run around and avoid Mara? And that's kind of the impetus of the story? Or I was wondering if there's been any kind of development on that.
He's lighting up the cathedral, and there is functionality to do that sort of in the environment, but we didn't stick it in this demo. But basically, as you walk through the areas, parts will be lighting up, and when you're done walking through all of it, it's all lit so that Mara can pass.
Narratively, we explained our whole narrative at Vertical Slice. I don't know if you were able to see our Vertical Slice.
I apologize.
Yeah. So basically, like a quick rundown of that is that the monk that you see in the very beginning was lighting the cathedral up to spread hope throughout the cathedral. But because of the plague, he succumbed to the sickness and fell and dropped that candelabra that you saw in the very beginning. Jean was actually one of those candles on the candelabra, and now he is basically a representation of the soul of that monk that's on the ground. And so his goal is to basically light the cathedral up and continue to spread hope throughout that cathedral. Mara is the enemy, or one of the nuns that's in the cathedral, but she saw so much sickness and people dying from the plague that she lost all hope, and now is trying to like get rid of any hope that's in that cathedral.
Oh,
So John is
fantastic.
trying to, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have an ending point? Is there an end to the game?
We're still exploring some ideas of that, but basically what we want to do is be able to light the entire cathedral up so there won't be so many shadows. And then when that happens, there's going to be a little, not like a boss fight, but more Mara's going to try to grab you and you can burn her hand. We're running through some different options now to see what makes more sense for our game right now.
All right. Well, I think that you've got a great look going there. I think it's looking awfully wonderful. I think what I'm throwing at you is just nitpicky stuff. So overall, great job.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. So Alyssa texted me. She's been having some bandwidth problems, dropping on and off, and I only got to see parts of the presentation, and she's not sure she can maintain the bandwidth right now to be able to give comments. So maybe you can catch up with her later. But she did say that what she saw was freaking awesome. So that being the case, and I know I don't see Ron still on here anywhere, and of course Tom gives you his feedback every week. Why don't we hear from Nick? I see he's online, so Nick.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Well, I agree with Chris. You guys got a really great look, and I've loved everything I've seen so far about the character and everything. Yeah, so I really like the contrast that you guys got going on for the lighting within here. I know lighting is always a big deal for all of our capstone games to get like a better lighting in there. And so this is really cool to see that you guys got this really super moody and contrasty kind of look that you guys got going on there with that. Some of the things I saw, like when you guys showed the monk, if he's supposed to be dead, I don't know how long he's been dead, but based off of what you've shown me, like you're using very warm tones on there. So I'm expecting if he's been laying on the floor for a good amount of time, that he's probably going to be a bit more discolored, and you're kind of going to not be using so warm colors, that maybe you're going to be using maybe a little bit cooler colors. I know you showed that offline, and I don't remember seeing him necessarily in the world. How are you gonna like showcase him? Is this going to be at the very beginning where you see the monk dead?
Yes, he was in the demo. He was laying right in front of the candelabra that you can light right in the beginning.
Okay.
That was like in the demo. I said, hey, check out the monk that we showed in the presentation. He was laying right there because he had fallen and dropped the candelabra, and Jean was one of those candles on that candelabra stick. So he's right there. He just died.
How are you going to introduce that as like a story element to kind of showcase that at the very beginning, so the player kind of knows that this was you, your soul's been kind of transferred to this candle?
We were gonna do like some, like it's dark, it's like a black screen. You hear some sounds of the falling, of the running and the falling, and then you see the scene.
And then also those tapestries that we showed in the presentation will also signify that a monk was lighting the cathedral, and you should be able to, as a player, say, oh, that's the same monk that was just there.
Okay, cool. Whenever I did see Mara, I was actually surprised at the actual size of that, and it was kind of interesting. Like it's pretty cool. I'm just not sure at this point, like how you interact with Mara. Like I know you're trying to maybe do some stealth and kind of hide from Mara. Is that the bigger thing where you're trying to avoid?
Correct.
But what happens whenever you're actually interacting with Mara? Is it just at that point you're kind of done and you're gonna die?
So if you die from Mara, there will be an animation where she grabs you, the candle, and will basically take her fingers and like take your light out.
Okay.
And then the whole point of our game is that light is a symbol of hope. So if you don't have your hope, then you die, and then you'll respawn back at one of those candelabra sticks.
Okay. So as far as like what you guys got to set up as far as interactions, by the time that Mara actually interacts with you, you're kind of in a done state, and you're able to play like a pre-canned animation kind of thing. Is that correct?
Correct. We're
Yeah.
still exploring.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it feels like an issue that could be kind of hard to solve because of the scale difference. But if you're going to be doing more kind of cinematic kind of things, then I don't think it's going to be a problem at that point. I was just kind of curious how she moves around the environment and is such a bigger character than the main character that's kind of playing in the world. So if you guys have already got thoughts about how you're going to interact with that, then I'm cool with that. But it was
I also want to note real quick too that right now we only have the walking animation, and that when she's actually sees you and starts chasing you, she will get down on her hands and knees and actually crawl after you, kind of like the Grudge.
okay, cool. So it's definitely a cool look, and I think it makes her look even a little bit more freaky just because she's so large compared to like the size of your character. So I think it helps with the creepy factor, you know. I was going to tell you, I really like the work that you guys did on the flame for the head. And I did notice whenever the player isn't moving, the shape of the flame becomes more geometric and kind of loses a little bit of the believability of the flame. So I'm not sure if you guys are aiming for that and kind of trying to make that shape feel a little bit more inviting and make it feel a little bit more like it's a character instead of like this living kind of flame. So I don't know. Can you talk about that? Like as the character stays still, like what are you hoping to do with that flame? Like what is
So a couple things as the player for the flame specifically, we're still exploring how we want to really make the character seem alive too. There's a couple things we're doing. The character really will never be standing still like he is currently. We have a couple different things. One thing is the face. We're actually going to have a rigged face that will be on top of the flame as well. That'll move. We're still working on that. And then we're also having different idle animations depending on what position he is inside of the chapel or inside of the cathedral itself. So he's very scared in the beginning, so he'll be moving around a whole bunch. The flame will be moving around more often as well. And then when he gets into the chapel and he's not as afraid of Mara as he was in the beginning, then he's going to kind of stand up and look a little more tough, and he would have more like geometric movements. So the flame will still be moving in those idle animations as well, because right now we don't have those.
okay? Yeah, that's going to be my next question, is about how you're actually going to do the face as well. So are those going to be kind of like floating pieces or elements that sit in front of the flame? Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and throw over to Joe if he wants to say anything specific about the rig. But yeah, that's basically what we're shooting for.
And okay, go ahead, Joe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to say anything, but I will. Yeah, we have, it's kind of like 3D geometry that will be moved via, it was originally going to be moved via clusters, but that doesn't work in Unreal. So it's going to be blend shape based. And it'll be rotating around an axis that's the middle point of his flame. So no matter like where he looks, the face still stays kind of in front of the flame.
Okay, yeah, that was my my one concern was as the flame starts moving, that the flame could actually clip through the face, and then you would not see the facial elements, and it would come off, you know, kind of maybe a little bit odd. So I don't know if you guys have tackled that part or kind of figured out how that's actually going to work with the flame moving, but that would be my only kind of concern, I guess, about the floating geometry in that case. Did you guys look into, does Unreal let you do custom draw orders for things? Because if so, like what I'm wondering is if you could always ensure that the facial elements are always going to be drawn in front of the flame. Not
Okay,
sure.
that isn't something that we've looked at, but that is something that we will definitely look at after this.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how that works in Unreal. I would just look into it and see if it's a possibility for you to be able to do that, right? So I know Chris talked to you about the shadow information underneath the character. So you have the doubter that you have, and that's a very specific shape for the shadow. It's more crisp and everything else like that. Obviously you're doing this fake shadow underneath the character. Maybe you mentioned it, but I didn't quite understand exactly what the technical problem is, why you're getting a dynamic shadow for the doubter but not for the actual character itself.
That is just something that we haven't tackled yet for the doubter shadow itself. We started with the character shadow first to make sure that looked good. And now that we have that, we're going to start exploring, making sure we get shadows on the buddy and the doubter and everything else.
But you do have You do have dynamic shadows on, is that correct? Because I thought I saw the shadow from your, or the light from your head was casting shadows on the environment elements. Was that correct?
Yes, the dynamic light is just Jean for performance issues, or just reasons. But the doubter, we're still exploring how we want to accomplish the dynamic shadow for the doubter itself. That's
Okay.
what we haven't tackled yet.
But why are you doing this fake shadow for the main part of your body though? What is the reasoning behind that?
To save performance.
Yeah.
Our main in the very beginning, we said it I think in the very first status update and in vertical. The big thing for us is performance, especially since you are a dynamic light. It's very dark. We have tons of shadows, tons of draw calls for this. So we're doing as much as we can and testing everything that we implement to make sure that it actually is like performance-wise it works.
Do you guys know about capsule shadows in UE4?
I personally am not sure. I don't know, Pat or Joe, you might, or Galana.
Okay. That's something they implemented a while back where it's a much cheaper form of casting shadows underneath characters like this. So they're not true dynamic shadow casting shadows, but they're basically like, if you think about the skeleton, you can build like a capsule shape around all your different joints that you want, and then it casts a shadow from that, and it's a lot cheaper, but it still gives you the illusion like you've got a dynamic shadow from a character. Because like right now you just got the Super Mario blob thing underneath, right? And the capsule shadows will give you some more specific shape. So if you're looking to try to save on performance and stuff like that, look into using capsule shadows for the character.
Okay, great.
Yep. Yeah, I really like your lighting. One thing I was hoping with lighting is that you guys could maybe paint a few more areas of interest. Like you've got a really cool creepy effect going on right now, but you're starting to do this thing with the lightning coming through the windows, and those are really cool. Those feel like really cool elements that you can kind of light up and give these areas that are just a little bit more I guess visually interesting to kind of look at, you know. I always think that lighting is this thing that you can use to have people become interested in a particular area where you want them to go and kind of explore. So it looks like you guys are doing that. I just don't know, like maybe just give a little bit more thought about how you want to really use lighting, because you guys are doing such a great job with it, but using lighting in a way that kind of guides people to these areas that you want them to kind of look at. I think you were doing that with a confession booth and stuff like that. So it looks like you're starting to think about it. It's just maybe so much of the level that we've been shown right now is just kind of like maybe this little tiny area. So you're probably going to be doing a lot more with that, you know?
Correct.
The other thing is with the lightning effect, I felt like you guys could even push that even further. So I don't know if you've got some way that you can amp that up or dial it back. And then maybe that's tied to like, you want different areas to become more intense and things like that. You know, you can kind of boost the mood that's kind of going on with some of the lightning stuff that you guys are got going on. So I think you got another tool at your disposal for setting mood and things like that, you know. I really like to see the tool that you guys are developing for doing play testing, and obviously you guys are going to push that thing forward. I thought that was going to be super interesting. I didn't quite understand. So as you record this, you have this dynamic camera that you can push and pull around the entire time that you're kind of dissecting what the player was doing. Is that right?
Correct. Right now, as it's implemented now, it's still, we have a lot of development left on it. But currently, right now, it's a freeform camera. So kind of like how you're in UE4 and you can fly around, that's what that is right now. But we're also looking at a way that we can also go back to the fixed camera view that we have in the actual game, and then be able to toggle back and forth between the two.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I guess I was just expecting that the first thing that I would want to see is just the exact camera that the player is looking at, you know, as they're
Correct.
kind of playing. And then the other thing is, I don't know how much you guys have done with sound, but I could just already tell you've got such a great visual kind of look, and I'm like excited to kind of see like what do you guys do with sound, and how do you implement sound to like just push things over the top kind of thing, you know. So that's it for me. Like I really I'm really encouraged by the work that you guys are doing, and I think you got a really great look. I think you guys are doing a lot of really cool stuff. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll mute.
All right. So yeah, very exciting. My third monitor crapped out on me, but so I had to move all my stuff over to the middle monitor. But most of what I wanted to say has already been said, so I'll just echo a couple things. I think Chris said this may be one of the best Capstone games he's ever seen. I'll just go ahead and commit and say it is. I don't ever remember seeing anything with graphics that could compare to this. It's really freaking awesome. So like Nick, I just had a few picky things that I could talk about. So I couldn't actually see a whole lot of difference between John's low and high attacks. You showed the animations, and you only showed them once, but I didn't see a whole lot of difference seeing them back to back. Maybe you could do something that makes it a little bit more pronounced. I don't know. I love the analysis that you guys did in terms of adjusting the grow flame mechanics and how you went about it. And I think that is awesome. That's like a clinic. That's how you should go about, evolving your game design. So really well done on that. Love to see the lighting coming through the windows. Not only is it just visually cool, it's one of those tone setters that I think really it was just grabbed you. It's very well done. I think early on, like you start in that room where you started, and then there was kind of a walk through a hallway, and then you get into a larger place. But that walk through the hallway felt really kind of dark to me. Later on, especially when you get up on tables and stuff, the lighting looked better. But in that one location, it really felt kind of dark. I'm not sure I like losing sight of John Wick when a foreground object gets in the way. There was a couple points where foreground objects got in the way, and I couldn't see what was going on. So I'm not sure I like that. I love the feel of being in the room with Mara. I thought it was really cool. But one of the things that struck me was you've got this big sense of scale, which I think is well done, in a huge place, in a dark environment. And I kind of wonder about the impact of those things when it comes to player navigation and orientation, trying to figure out where they are and what they're supposed to do. It's an interesting scale challenge because you've got a side-scrolling perspective, then you get a very limited view of the world, and then that's even more limited by the lighting and things like that. And you guys know where you're going, so it makes it really easy to orient yourselves and know what to do. And for the most part, I suppose, since it's side-scroller, you're just going forward, and there's not a whole lot of exploration. So maybe it's not a problem. But I don't know. As a player, I kind of want some idea of, I don't suggest like a radar map, but there's places where you could hide and things that you could do, and I wasn't sure how well I would know those things as a player. So I don't have a suggested solution. It's an observation.
Okay.
I'll take your word for it that when Jean's sprint comes into play, that it is fast enough to impact gameplay, but it doesn't look faster. So you obviously don't want to make him move faster, but maybe there's some kind of a visual effect you can do or something to kind of give the illusion of speed. Like I said, I'll take your word for it that it affects gameplay the way you want it to, but it would be nice if there was a way to make it look faster.
Okay.
I think somebody else gave feedback about Mara's walk cycle. I think that was Nick, and saying it looked a little blocky and sliding. I had the same observation. It was a little hard to tell because she doesn't stay on the screen very long and she's kind of shadowy, but it did look less polished than John Wick's.
Okay.
I thought your playtesting tool was freaking awesome. I love the 1/8 speed for bug tracking. That is just really, really terrific work. I also like the way that you guys reacted to the virus and see the way you guys kind of roll with the punches. That's pretty awesome. I think the way you're melding critical path and Scrum is actually pretty fascinating. I really love the production pipeline slide that you had. And kind of my last comment is that somehow, despite having a reduced month and a pandemic to deal with, you guys actually look like you were more productive this month than last month. And I thought you were really productive last month. This is a very impressive display of team organization. And you guys should kind of take a bow. That was really, really well done.
Thank you.
All right, so we normally take a little 5-minute break between these things, and even though we're running a little bit long, I think I'm going to let people do that. I have 11:57 on my clock.